Right, let's get going. And thank you for all of your patience, to all of you guys that have come. So World Rhino Day today, 22nd of September. Really, really wonderful to have you with us. And I know that it's a bit of a short notice swap, and it's our first attempt at trying to do both Facebook Live and Zoom together. So let's see how this goes. It might be a great success or it might not. So wonderful to have you with us, guys. And start off with a little bit of an introduction. So my name is Alice Bromwich. I have been working with the Black Mambas for several years. I started going out to visit them initially in 2016 and still have regular contact with them now and go out to train and do coaching there whenever I can. So that is why I today have got the great honour of being hopefully able to share a little bit about the Black Mambas and their work with you. And I happen to be their UK ambassador for my sins. So hence why I thought I must make sure I shared a little bit about their amazing work with you today on World Rhino Day. So here's a little video and let's hope that this plays.
I love nature. Since when I was high school, I fell in love with nature. The rhino means a lot in my life. I see rhino as an animal that deserves to live. Every day when I wake up, going to patrol the fence, I walk with that happiness that people can see us. They won't get inside our reserve. They will know that inside the reserve, there is people that are working every day. It's a nice thing working inside the reserve because you will develop that life of the animals. It was 2012 when I first see the rhinos at bush school. So that time I felt that I have to fight for the rhinos. It was my first time seeing a dead rhino. It was painful, deep down to my heart. It's hard to forget. And it's hard to look at that dead rhino. It is painful, scary, but it was the first time in 2015 inside our reserve, and it was the last time. We won't rest until we catch that poachers, because we will fight for the rhinos. We will fight for wild animals. To be a Black Mamba, it changed my life a lot. Because now I know who I am. Now I can fight for everything that I have. Because I have that love inside my heart of the rhinos. So I'm proud to be a Black young woman doing anti-poaching. This is our nature. Even our children want to see it. They want to see the real rhinos, not the pictures. I have hope that we can win this battle.
There we go. So that's the beautiful Colette. Colette was one of the first 6 Black Mambas back in 2013 when they were founded, and is now one of the sergeants and helps run the ops room. So a really, really fundamental lady within the Black Mamba team, both from day one and still through to this day, which in itself gives you a good idea of the passion and the commitment of these amazing ladies. So just to give you a little bit of background, so Baluli Reserve, which is where the Black Mambas work, is in what's known as the Greater Kruger area. So the amazing piece that you can see down here that's along the Mozambique and South African border is essentially the main Kruger National Park. And that's then got, relatively speaking, quite porous borders that enables the animals to be able to move between Mozambique and South Africa. Only problem being is that Mozambique is filled with poaching, and so very few of the animals survive. So, you know, big creatures being very bright, despite their size, means that they instead decide to go west. And this area inside the red circle essentially is what's called Greater Kruger. And that is where lots of different landowners have gathered together to make sure that they've all removed the fencing around their land plots so that the animals can move freely between them. And it's a great piece basically in South Africa that means if you've got any of the big five, or if you have the big five on your land, you must have an anti-poaching capability. And so that also then means that the Black Mambas are able to support and patrol across a lot of land that's owned by many different landowners and tribes, but covering around 45 to 50,000 square hectares at any one, square kilometres, because that will flux depending on as people add into the area or as land is also moving hands. So who are the Black Mambas? Who are these amazing ladies that you keep on hearing me talk about? So they were previously about 33, but there was a bit of a reorg last year back over in 2019. And so we're now back to 27. They are young, rural, amazing African ladies. They are sisters, mothers, aunties, wives, and already on the way, some of them to becoming future grandmothers, which is very exciting. But they're also teachers and leaders in their communities, and they're very proud defenders of our wildlife treasures. And I say our wildlife because their view is very much that what they are doing is for a global benefit, not just for a single community or for a single nation. So, excuse the slightly graphic pictures here, but essentially what is the main aim? Is the atrocities you can see as people are taking the horns off the rhinos, is and occasionally some of the elephants too, is absolutely brutal. There is no gentleness to this at all. And so part of it is ensuring that they not only create, as in the Mambas, create a proud and sympathetic and patriotic community around the park and around the reserve, which then enables people to feel that they want to help protect it, but is also making it a very undesirable and risky area to try and poach, by knowing that anybody that starts to poach in that arena essentially is going to have a very hard day. So I know these are slightly out of date as far as they run up to 2017, but this gives you an idea of why I ended up being asked to go and help. It's because the rhino figures were getting worse and worse and worse. And by 2016, which is when I was invited to go and start working with the Mambas, they just had 2 catastrophic years. And the numbers of poaching are just completely and utterly unsustainable. And even now, back into 2019, because the figures are done annually, the poaching numbers were down more into the 700s. But what that doesn't demonstrate is the proportional loss of the actual rhino population itself, which has continued to be decimated. So what do the Mambas do? They're all about early protection, early detection. So they are literally on patrol every day, morning and evening, also doing monitoring and surveillance during the day, making sure that they are doing compliance. So that is doing roadblocks, and I'll show you some pictures in a minute. Welcome to you guys who've just been able to join us a little bit. We've just kicked off to get going. I hope that's all right. But they are really, really reliant on the community buy-in. And so they want to provide an open window into the adjacent communities so that people can feel like the land and the animals are very much part of the community ownership. And so part of this is then addressing the social decay and the false economy created by rhino poaching. And a lot of it's all about crime prevention. So I'm here with the old beautiful Megatron, which is the very old 1950s Land Rover that has just been retired over in the right-hand picture, bless him. What a great vehicle to be in. And you can see there's a couple of Mambas there, literally on there, doing roadblocks, on their duties. But entertainingly is I've been in that beautiful Megatron, and the side of that vehicle is about the same height as some of the lionesses that will literally walk along your start beside you on patrol. Quite nerve-wracking. So these ladies are literally out in all sorts of different environments. And the weapon you can see to your left-hand side is very much a homegrown, with their attempt a silencer on it. But we're not talking about very well organized, highly proficient marksmen here. We're talking about local people trying to make a living, being utilized by organized crime groups with some of the most basic of equipment. So how is the multi-tiered approach looking at stopping poaching? So essentially there's a very small ops team. So Craig Spencer, who is the founder and director of Transfrontier Africa, who runs the Black Mamba project, he and a few others essentially look at the organized crime, the integration with police, the real high tier strategic deployment and management of assets. You've then got the tactical response team, which is more the kind of hotspots, and they're going out to doing search and destroy things like poachers' camps that they might come across. And they're the armed response, essentially. So if they do track down poachers, that from that aspect is you've got an armed response that can come and help you with that, because the poachers will be very unwilling to allow themselves to be caught, as you can imagine. Going into a South African jail, I do not think would be on anybody's to-do list. And so from that aspect, the key piece of this is then the Black Mambas. So they are unarmed, and they are the eyes and the ears, gathering information, doing lots of visual patrols, fence patrols, searching and destroying snares, big piece of the work, especially during something like COVID, where people are hungry. And so you're having the risk of actually poaching, not being to take a large rhino horn, but to be instead looking for bushmeat. And very much a kind of bobbies on the beat style for anyone who's been to the UK. That's where, you know, having lots of police on the ground who know the ground really, really well. So lots of coverage on the ground. So, and this is how it works out essentially, is they look at where are the assets. So the assets being the rhinos. And so from that perspective, that's where you've got the red parts here. And you're looking at where is the concentration of where the animals are. And that's because of understanding of the area, feedback from other patrols. And then the blue lines are essentially all the different patrols. So this ensures that all of the Mamba activity is really focused where it can have the biggest impact. And so from this perspective, you can see where the patrols have detected incursions, and then where they've been able to see where there has been rhinos, and then the buffers around it. So there are actually quite a few parts of the park that don't need to have large volumes of patrolling. Now the little red triangles are where there used to be pickets, but at the moment, because of COVID, those are changing quite significantly to be able to ensure the best use of resource and the best support for where the animals are. So it's not where someone can take the map and say, oh, but we know where they all live now. Those can also be mobile as well. So community benefits. And this for me is the absolute 120% biggest game changer that the Mambas have done, that so far others are now coming around to the idea of, but that was really groundbreaking at the start. And that's the idea that if you bring pride to your work and skills development for everyone around you, engaging the schools, developing your community, then the will of the community is going to be with you to stop the poaching. It's not just about protecting the animals for nostalgic, nice, pretty, fluffy creatures. This is a community aspect of part of their ecosystem, part of their financial system too, with tourism and keeping farms going and ensuring that there's good schooling and that there's good investment in the local area. And this is actually one of the previous International Rhino Days, where they got all the Mambas out, bar the ones on patrol, obviously, and got all the local communities and the schools out too, to really show support for the fact that the poachers do not lead the community, the anti-poachers lead the community. And when we're exploring leadership, this is really, really important. The number of times I get told, even this morning, oh, Alice, it's all about the 0.1% in the government. They have to drive the change. Yesterday, somebody said to me, no, Alice, it needs to be driven from the top. It's got to be the CEO that makes that change. My answer to that is no, 100% no. It starts with you. It starts with us. It starts from every single solitary one of us deciding what do we believe in, what are we willing to fight for, What are the values and standards we're going to start from ourselves out? Obviously, you want the buy-in from above, but at the end of the day, these are small children. They're changing it by looking at their education. They're looking at whether or not they allow their dad to go out and be a poacher, whether or not they're encouraging their mum to go and do bushmeat poaching. You know, this is a big piece. It's about bringing the community around you. And to just as a very brief one, and I think we always have to remember, is the wonderful lady up here on the right-hand side. She is no longer with us. So Sipiwe unfortunately died just as I was starting to work with the Mambas. And so do not take any thought of, because this action's being done by women, that it goes without risk. So they've lost a couple of Mambas now, and unfortunately Sipiwe, like I say, went from us a few years ago, but 120% dedicated to her work and the impact that she could create. And lovely Colette, I think, now looks after Sipiwe's children. So this is a full-on community engagement piece, unity of effort, unity of purpose, about ensuring that they create a stronger and more stable environment, both in the financial systems locally and within the, the conservation arena. So yes, back in 2015, they were recognized globally as champions of the earth, the Black Mambas. So that's with Colette and Felicia there going over to New York, receiving the award for Champions of the Earth, for really changing how people looked at anti-poaching. So often we're described about it all being about bombs and bullets and mowing people down, and helicopter gunships over in Mozambique with some of the, the guys that they've brought down from some of the mercenaries. There are all sorts of different ways of doing anti-poaching, but for this is about doing it unarmed. It's about in community involvement. It's about changing thoughts and leading from the front in every layer, every tier of South Africa and globally. So one of the challenges, of course, though, with 2016, as you saw in the statistics, which is just after the Mambas had got their award from the UN, is that the poaching numbers start to go up. So one of the things which I think is really important as you're exploring how does this relate to you and your teams at the moment, is making sure you've got pride. The value of pride, the value of camaraderie, of teammanship is so, so key. And so they are breadwinners. And that's what all of us are when we're in our jobs. It's not just providing a great job for ourselves, it's also being breadwinners for our families and for our communities. Having respect for each other, respect for others, having pride in what you do, really looking at what are the skills we can upskill ourselves all the time. And that's why I'm still with the Mambas now. 2020 is now, so that's 4 years later, because these ladies are so good at upskilling. They are like little sponges. Every time you speak to them, they absorb something new. They're coming up with new ideas, new thoughts. So invigorating. But it's ensuring that we remain true to our own identity. And that's critical, because for the Mambas, they come from different tribes. So at the time when these photos were taken, they were from 4 different tribes, all with very different identities and from different parts of the area. But by creating a unified purpose and a unified community spirit in the Mambas, that gave them a unified identity as well, and ensuring that they had that family feel. And for every team that I've always run, and that I really, for those that I work with, you guys will know, we try and encourage, is look at it like a family. How can you look after each other? Looking for the indicators and warnings of when are things going well, when are things maybe not going so well. How can you bring out the best in each other? You don't necessarily have to have the family spats or politics like some families have, but is having that kind of coherent, inclusive feel about how you're approaching everything, even though every single solitary person is still an individual in their own right. So a little bit how we can do that, and I'm not going to get up and start doing my star jumps right now, even though that would probably give you a bit of entertainment, is just by having a bit of a sense of humor. So with the Mambas, and I know that Valeria, wonderful to see you on today. You have got the Mambas doing the Jerusalem Challenge, which is a kind of, almost looks like a global Uber TikTok challenge of getting a Jerusalem song, which has been written by a South African musician, and then they're getting people around the globe to do this kind of special Jerusalem song. So have a look up on it, and I'll Valeria very sweetly sent me the link earlier. I'll put that onto the feed as well. But brilliant, brilliant fun, getting people to laugh. And then they're doing a Ranger challenge, which is going to be essentially testing their confidence and their mind skills. So part of the piece that I do is the neurolinguistic programming. That's about getting your brain into the best state it can be in. And when I say physical state, that's because our brain is still made up of lots of different, aspects where you have to train it and prepare it. So part of that is the neurolinguistic programming is helping draw on the ideas, as you can see in the back, that your thoughts will affect how you feel, will affect how you behave, and in which case that will affect how you are on the ground. So Valeria, I think you've also got a 22 kg tab across the reserve in the next few days. And I remember trying to do this with the Mambas a few years ago. And all I can say is have a wonderful time, but my goodness, mindset, mindset, mindset. Our physical bodies can do almost anything if we've set our minds to it. So a lot of this work is about preparing the mind to stretch itself and ourselves physically further than we ever thought we could go before. And interestingly, just for this little picture, this is where when I went back for my second trip with the Mambas, which was back in 2017, they just had lots of lion encounters. So beautiful lion cubs, as you can see from the big lion behind me, which is why I always have that up to remind us of the courage of the lion, but also that it can be quite scary occasionally to have around us, is the lion cubs were all curious about the Mambas on patrol and started to try and explore what was a Mamba. So they'd hear the Mambas on patrol, bound out of the bush, out of the savannah land. But unfortunately, Mummy Lion, the lioness, is not so curious with such a just positive manner. She's wanting to protect her cubs. So these ladies had all had lion experiences the weeks literally as I arrived and in my first week there. And that's pretty darn scary, being chased by a lioness up into trees, over fences. We make quite good dinner if somebody mistakes us for food. So that's a big piece too, is setting the mindset to be able to walk with the lions, be able to, rhinos are pretty darn dangerous too. So that very large horn coming towards you is being sure they've got all the skills to navigate living in a very austere and hostile environment, but where that austerity comes from, very few other assets on the ground apart from them, and the hostility will often come from the animals as well as the poachers. Quite a challenging environment, but great fun too. And this is where you guys come in. This is why I love sharing this story about what the Mambas do, is because this little picture here, which I don't know if any of you guys saw back in March, was part of the Apple Behind the Mac 2020 International Women's Day celebrations. My little Mac there, which literally I've had for 10 years and we're just trying to retire at the moment. But that was a video of a South African lady I was working with in Norway, of all places, saying thank you back to the Black Mambas for the work they were doing. And that's why I praise and thank you guys for coming on today, sharing part of your lunchtime. I know it's September and it's super busy, but by these ladies knowing that what they do matters and knowing that people actually appreciate what they're doing, huge, huge, huge motivational factor, massive motivational factor. So thank you, because the ladies know every time that I'm doing one of these presentations, and I don't do them very often at the moment because of COVID. And that's why I thought it was so, so important to keep their motivation up and our awareness up during these most challenging of times. So this is what they're like normally. This is kind of what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis, what the ladies are out doing every day. Well, almost every day, bar bottom left, is out on patrol every day. So that it was one of their old patrol houses up on the left-hand side, up in Creaky. So I've spent many a happy night up in that little bothy, and that has been one of the Mamba Pickets' homes for many years. And one of the wonderful gifts that you guys enable me to take with me is books. So on the right-hand side, you can see there we've got Inkateko, Cute, and who else have we got with us? I'm hidden, I'll come back. Is essentially, and Kalile. So that was essentially getting them to read through books. So the education part of this can never be underestimated, and it's multi-generational. So I had lots of amazing donations of books that we take out. And every time I go out to visit, I take as much as I can physically carry to be able to complement the learning that the Mambas are doing in the workspace for their children too. So this is them going through books, practicing reading them so that they feel really comfortable themselves, so that when they can go home, we can encourage them to read to their children, upskilling the children too, upskilling the next generation, so that every Mamba's household is proud of what the mother is doing, is proud of the difference that their mum is making, but also is receiving a benefit back at home. And actually that's the bottom left, is us taking them to Kruger as a bit of a change of scene to enjoy seeing some of the animals in their natural wildlife. And we actually went to go and stay in a hippo hide, and that was hysterical because the ladies are used to being in their own environment and very confident and strong about the animals that are in their own reserve, but actually stretching them. Like all of us, we need to stretch ourselves out of our comfort zone. And so putting them next to a hippo pond, and the hippo is a very dangerous animal when it's unhappy, meant that we literally had the hippos coming and eating right up to the edge of where we were sleeping and where we were in the hide. And that was a really great piece because it kept them safe, but was stretching their boundaries of comfort, but also upskilling them in the knowledge of how to deal with some of the big beasties that otherwise could be offering risk to life. And yeah, so very happy Mambas there on their days out. So the training doesn't have to be boring. Make sure everyone enjoys it. And then on the right-hand side here is the night patrols, which is part of my favorite bit, and especially at full moon. So full moon patrols is where traditionally there was a lot more poaching during full moon, but at the moment it has pretty much evened out across the month. So big challenges last year with the dogs, and that's why the numbers of the Mambas have changed, is because essentially some of them wanted to work with the dogs and others didn't. Beautiful dogs are phenomenal for helping extend the coverage that the Mambas can be able to patrol, and also as far as for giving you an excellent sniffer hound with you, which enables you to be able to not only have your sight, which is where the Mambas are doing a lot of the fence patrols and checking for spoor, etc., but you've now also got the scent from the hounds that are able to chase after once you've got the scent of a poacher. And this is what you might think they're doing, because that's what some crazy people think they're going to be doing with their sniffer dogs, and this is in the reality. So it's a lot of fence patrols, like I say, being able to upgun the amount of mileage they can do. And this is actually where they've also started supporting Hoedspruit Endangered Wildlife Centre, where they look after a lot of orphaned rhinos, cheetahs, and some of the other endangered species. So the Mambas are also spreading their wings of who they're being able to support. Really, really important work. So big challenges for 2020. I know I promised I'd try and keep this one short, so giving you a quick canter through of what they're doing. But what brilliance, brilliance, brilliance. And you've heard me before because you guys are predominantly part of the Luminary Leaders, and if you're not, then I'll make sure I drop a link in for that too. But this is such a time of opportunity. So as the world has gone into lockdown, it makes moving rhino horns, animal products, much, much harder. So both the supply chain has been disrupted and the demand has been disrupted. We've all seen in China with all of those different wildlife markets being shut down, people petrified that COVID has actually come from the international movement of wild animals. So why would we continue something that is now changing the entire human race? Why would you? So luckily that has really helped. And also the informants are now locked down at home. And funny enough, this relates very closely to London. Chatting to some of I do counter-terrorism stuff as well in London, chatting to some of the guys in London, they said it was hysterical. You know, at the start of COVID, it was as if everyone thought they could have free reign to now start being able to get into the city and do what they liked. What they forgot is that any of those that were deciding to go and do the stealing, lay bombs or do any of the other nastiness planned, essentially they're the only ones on the ground. So the police were able to track them really quickly. And that's the same. The informants are now locked down. So in the past, you'd have informants inside the reserves saying where the animals were, talking about different movements, etc. That's much, much harder now that the Mambas are the only ones allowed on many parts of the reserve. So brilliant. Well done, the ladies, because, you know, COVID came. We were so fortunate from my previous speaking engagements to be able to send some money over. and along with some other generous donors from around Europe and the world as well, and to make sure that they had enough fuel to keep on doing the patrols, this is where the funding goes. Full fuel and food. Sorry, don't know, I'm catching myself. Fuel and food. If you can't feed yourself, you can't be on patrol. If you can't drive anywhere, you can't be on patrol. Some real basics that I think we forget. Things like tyres. A whole set of tyres for one of those Land Rovers is £600. Pounds, not 600 rounds, £600. So a lot of this is helping keep them on the road, keeping the mileage up, mileage on their feet, mileage in the wagons. And so, yeah, higher enforcement presence on and off the reserves. Much more freedom of movement as far as for the Mambas to be able to move without worrying about disrupting any of the tourism that's in the parks, etc. But really clear that when they're then seeing, track marks that aren't their own, that they know be able to go, okay, where have those come from? Especially during the initial lockdown phase, when even the landowners were locked down. So hence the uncluttered landscape. So massive reduction in both the poacher effort and the number of poached rhinos, and a well done, and let's keep it going for the Mambas and the other amazing rangers and anti-poaching units who essentially have just upgunned every aspect of their work to keep the pressure on and keeping all of those animals safe, to give them a window of opportunity, hopefully now, to breed, to start to recover, because this takes a long time. The gestation period, for example, for an elephant is, I can't quite remember exactly how many months, but it is, I want to say 13 months. I'm not sure. Anyway, it's a long time. Caught me out there. I shouldn't be using something I can't give you instantly. But yeah, gestation periods are quite long, especially for the big mammals. And there hasn't been the anticipated increase in snaring that they were looking for the bushmeat. So again, the ladies did a massive push at the start of going out and clearing the kind of environs where the local population comes to meet into the reserve, and they call them the buffer zones, looking for snares and helping reduce any of the snare activity there. And then the lost investment in wildlife patriotism. So I think that's interesting. As far as this is a challenge, though, is that we still need to make sure that we are providing finances back in to keep these animals and activities going. And so this was, I remember, a lot of discussion of this at the start, and I think it'd be interesting as we go into our second round of potential lockdown, is there's also the social dilemma. Is in the past, when poaching was only about removing a rhino's horn, I say only, but it was very much organised crime. It was about making a lot of money for a few people. Bushmeat's very different. Bushmeat's about your survival. It's about ensuring you've got something to be able to feed your family with. So this is where ensuring that actually internally amongst the local population that there is honest, valid work. And there are other ways of being able to earn money and get food and buy food that doesn't involve coming and poaching some of the bushmeat. Okay, so pretty much cantering through some of this part. But yeah, there's the social grants. The Mambas have done a huge amount of fundraising. I think 95 families they were feeding, giving them a month's worth of food supplies for the most vulnerable families around the edge of the reserves. So, so, so important. And that's where, again, some of the funding that we're trying to help raise goes to support literally putting food onto people's tables. But in the interim is also the downward trend of rhino horn, of rhino products, of us internationally going, no, don't give it to me as a thank you present. No, that is no longer part of my transition into adulthood, which is what some people used to be given, things like some of the knives and things in the Middle East, which would have rhino horn around the top. And it's just longer term wise, is looking at the morality globally, every one of us, of wherever we come from, whichever country we're living in, what are the choices we're making as consumers? Where are you going on your holiday? What products are you buying in the supermarket? Which companies are you buying shares in? When we think it has to always come from above, our personal power can be phenomenal if we aggregate it. So it always has to start a little bit with us and then build out. And yeah, so when international travel resumes, which we're seeing some of, it'll be really interesting to see whether or not then that has a commensurate rise in the poaching as well. But hopefully, fingers crossed, this is one of the only good parts about everyone staying in lockdown, is it means that that behavioural change is becoming more and more ensconced. Oh. One last one. Here we go, last piece. And this is what we've got to hope for, because this is where, over time, like I say, I was very sweetly encouraged to go over and invited to go and work with the Mambas in 2016. And the poaching numbers have decreased. But this does not show you the number of rhinos still alive. And that's something which is still being worked out at the moment. This shows you the number of rhinos killed. It doesn't show it in relation to the percentage of population. And my understanding is at the moment, even though you know, we're down below the 7, or when this was done was the 700s, that doesn't show in relation to how many baby rhinos are being born, how many new rhinos are being born and surviving. And we've had some absolute atrocities by the poaching community over the last couple of years of things like going and just mowing down, macheteing down just a rhino orphanage's baby rhinos. No reason, no horns, nothing, but they wanted to prove that they had the upper hand. So we've still got a long way to go in ensuring that this good downward trend continues. And bless them, the rhinos actually in Baluli Reserve have now been dehorned to try and encourage that. But we don't know what the long-term impact of that will be on the actual species. You know, they've got a horn for a reason. So that'll be interesting too. Okay, so there we go. Next steps is surviving COVID-19 financially and physically. A phenomenally generous person, and I'm not expecting all of us to be in this position, actually donated a huge chunk to the Mambas just before COVID, which meant they could actually buy a farm of their own. So a lot of the COVID transition period has also been consolidating the Mambas into a real true Mamba home for them, where they can deploy out from. And that is just, I mean, just phenomenal. Again, you never know what any of us is going to be able to provide. Another lady one day provided a Land Rover, where she went and climbed some crazy mountain, so lovely Holly Budge, climbed some crazy mountain, gave all of the proceeds of what she raised to the Mambas to buy a new vehicle. But similarly, every single solitary donation we've had over the years, as I've done talks or where we've sent fluffy animals out to people, or you've got a company where you'd like me to come and talk through about the power that we have to create change ourselves, and in the context of the Mambas, of showing if these ladies who come from different tribal areas in South Africa, in the middle of nowhere, can end up being able to save one of the world's most iconic species, create this global movement now with millions of followers across the globe, have videos and films made about them, have UN awards given to them, then just imagine what we can each do, what each one of you can do too. And that's really what I ask from the end of this is, I hope that you've enjoyed learning a bit about the Mambas and their phenomenal work. And like I say, wonderful to see Valeria here, who actually is out working with the Mambas at the moment. And other of you guys, thank you for joining us. Any questions? I'm just going to drop off the screen share. Oh yes, this was just a very quick one of why does it matter? Why does it matter? Because if we only have a few of these creatures left, and we still don't even necessarily fully understand their impact within the bigger ecosystem, it's the equivalent of just going to an enlarged zoo. Nobody wants that. And also it means that the species won't have the breadth to be able to keep themselves fit and have the gene pool as well. Okay, and because they're role models, keeping the Mambas strong and going, they're now Black female women creating global change. What phenomenal role models wherever we are in the planet. And yes, they've got pride and dignity. And yeah, let me tell you, never even question that. Otherwise you'll be in a whole world of problems. So there we go. Final piece, diversity, clarity of direction, varying agendas, but making sure there's always one thing that people are looking at. And looking at what you can control, not what you can't control. And appreciating that we do need to all have financial buffers. So that's, I think, just as important for us, is looking at, okay, what do we need to ensure for our businesses that we've got in place to ensure financial survival? But we're offering value every day. And that's what the Mambas are doing, is offering value every day. And doing The easy thing versus the right thing. We all know that. The temptation is to do the easy thing. The strong leadership is when you do the right thing. And yeah, femininity in a male arena. I think from that perspective, it's lovely to see a mix on the group here today of men and women. Is if we work together, we can all achieve phenomenal things. And it's not being worried about the fact that ladies are working in a predominantly male arena. And boys, embrace it. You know, it's just thank you for letting us in. I know that might sound slightly counterintuitive, but the strongest advocates I've had in all of my career have predominantly come from the males who've been my bosses at the time, offered me opportunities and given me the flex to then go out and do great work. So we have to be in this together, whatever gender we are. And there you go. So that's a little bit from me. That's from my first trip out, bless them, with the beautiful rhinos when they still had their horns on. One vegetarian talking to another vegetarian, but they're even more blind than me, even with my goggles on. So there we go. So if I stop the screen share now, you will then be able to ask any questions. And yeah, are there any questions that you guys have got that you would like to ask? Anything about these amazing ladies? And thank you again for sharing your lunchtime with us. Are men allowed to be a Mamba? So there have been a couple of Mambas, and there is one boy Mamba. That's why we always describe it as majority female, who is Colin. And Colin is a legend. He's actually recently got married last year. What a brave lady. So yeah, there are occasionally, but predominantly that was because at the start, the Mambas couldn't drive. So back in 2017, one of the fundraising drives we did was to help raise funds to pay for the Mambas to be able to do their driving license. And so actually at the start, the Mambas, whilst they were on patrol, were supported with male drivers. So, and again, the weapon carriers at that stage were all blokes. So what we've now got is the ladies are trained to be able to carry weapons if they need to, but it's not encouraged. And then from that aspect is, Colin is still there, but I hate to say it, but the pulls and pushes on men folk is where actually there aren't very...
I'm sitting on something on the Black Mambas.
Oh, hello, Lynn.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right, don't worry.
Should have been on mute, sorry.
Whatsoever, do not worry, happens to us all. So any other queries or questions? So a bit of a long answer.
Question from Facebook, when are you heading back in?
Oh, when am I heading back out? Well, when am I heading back out? When will we be allowed to? So the team is really, really generous and have said, Alice, come whenever I can and whenever I can get there. The challenge is being able to get there. So at the moment, I'm hoping that 2021, I can take a resilience leadership retreat down there. So my aim is to actually take some of you guys with me. The Mambas are ready. They're looking forward to it. Craig has said, he's the guy who runs the Mambas, has said, yep, he's happy for us to bring a team down, do a resilience retreat, take you on patrol, and then you can actually stretch your own boundaries alongside these amazing ladies too. So 2021, God willing, inshallah. How dangerous is it for the ladies? Poacher threat, not wildlife. Really interesting. So by being unarmed, this is where the wonderful part about human dynamics comes in. And when we're talking about policy versus persona. So the ladies being unarmed means you've naturally created a very difficult dilemma for a poacher who's got a weapon in his hand. Because if he shoots a black mamba who's unarmed, he has now just created an orphan because lots of them have got a family. He's potentially just taken away the main breadwinner for a family. So lots of the Mambas support up to 10 people each on their wage. And the wage is pretty small, I hasten to add. It's like £120 a month, I think. Something like that. It's £120 or $120. It's not much, I hasten to add. And so the poacher threat to them, ironically, is probably less than their threat to the poacher. And so by having a very visible presence, by being on patrol regularly, by being well networked into the police and ensuring that there are lots of police patrols on the outside, it means that as the poachers come towards the reserve to potentially come and do poaching, there's also then the police, like I say, well networked in, so they can stop cars that they think might be having poachers in them. There's a real strong network around the area of people in the communities that don't want the poaching. And then, so by the time somebody actually comes in the reserve, they don't want to be caught. So to date, and long may that remain, is the actual one-to-one conflict of a poacher and the Mambas, I think is limited, very, very minimal. Because actually by having that high, loud presence, which is quite counterintuitive for those of us that come from the military, where you'd normally be, when you're doing surveillance, very quiet, very hidden, covert, is they do that in different areas to be able to get the trends and to be able to see where some of the incursions might be, but very much on the external is loud and proud to deter. So it's a massive deterrence. So is it dangerous for the ladies from the poachers? If they were to come one-on-one, probably yes. But the threat for the poacher, because the ladies also sometimes will be carrying the air pistols and various other things, and they're all got radios, spotlights, you know, they're all sorts of different pieces of equipment that essentially mean they're very well prepared. I'd say at the moment, it's more dangerous for the poacher than it is for the women. And obviously we love doing a bit of unarmed combat, so that's always good to enjoy that part. Okay, any other queries or questions? And I hasten to add, from this aspect is one of the wonderful parts, and this is especially for us when we're exploring how do we bring this back into our own teams. The Mambas have continued to be upskilled every year, even like now with Valeria preparing to take the Mambas out onto the ground to do this 22 kg tab across the reserve. It's keeping them fit, it's keeping up the camaraderie, it's developing the team aspect, is all the time is positively reinforcing. Every day is a school day, we're positively reinforcing on the lesson we learned yesterday so that we're more prepared for tomorrow. Never ending. And they've had some amazing instructors. I'm just one very small person inside this much bigger environs of brilliant unarmed instructors. They've had some Marines that have taken over, gone over years ago when they were first starting up and took them out in the field to teach them tradecraft. Some phenomenal biologists and conservationists that have taken them through the kind of different aspects of doing the conservation work really well as well. Just, it's absolutely a community effort, which is why I love sharing it with you. What is the optimum number of ladies need more, or have you the right numbers now? I think this is a really interesting piece from a numbers perspective. Is it depends. So say, for example, by having the dogs, it enabled a much broader area to be covered in a much shorter period of time, because the dog will be able to pick up the scent. Whereas when you're looking for tracks, it takes a lot longer. So it also depends of, I think for now, they've got a really good, strong cohort. And I was there last year when we were doing the recruitment from 2 other tribes. And then they've had the training now to bring those ladies up to speed. And that's been a kind of, that's almost been a year-long process. So getting a Mamba up to speed takes quite a long time. But also this wonderful premise of integrating the anti-poaching skills with your community is actually now spreading out of just the female arena. And I guess maybe it's just natural, is that because the Mambas have got at least, like I say, up to 10 people each that they're supporting, for the 30 Mambas at the time, that's 300 people. That's a lot of social pressure that is going to go on to one poacher if they start to not be successful and then risk no longer being employed. And are there any plans to introduce Mambas into other reserves? Really interesting. Scaling this is something that has been explored for the last few years. And so there are other projects, especially up in Kenya, one down in Zimbabwe, where other people have taken on developing female units, but they haven't taken the same ethos. And I think this is a really interesting piece. It's not just about, can you wear a skirt or not on your day off? It's also the ethos that it brings. It's the community spirit. It's about developing, like we say, that strong cohort around the community. And things like the Mambas have got 8 environmental monitors, for example, who are like a hybrid. They're young people that go into the communities to discuss challenges that are going on. So perceptions of, for example, an elephant is seen as at one stage is seen as not only very dangerous, but it's also a lot of food. So why wouldn't you go and poach or kill an elephant? Because you can feed your family with it. In comparison to exploring, actually, it doesn't have to be dangerous if you're looking after it well. And working out how actually the funding that you will get into your community by having the tourism there when tourists are able to go back, but also having them keeping the grasses down, for example, with the rhinos, where the rhinos are still existing, the bushfires are much lower. And you look at parts of South Africa where there's been terrible bushfires, that's also where a lot of the wildlife had gone. So there's nothing there eating it and keeping it trampled down anymore. So would they like to introduce mambas into other reserves? I know, my impression is that I know they're very open to that. So if you know any reserves that would be interested in it, then absolutely get in touch. The challenge there is that it looks far simpler than it is. So there's lots of experience in there that just needs a little fine tuning to be able to be replicated. But yeah, there's no reason it couldn't be spread with the right ethos. And unfortunately, a few of the other ladies' teams that have been created have been where they've tried to create women as men, if that makes sense. So very much focused on the up-arming of the women rather than the community aspect. But hopefully that will develop and we can create a hybrid and work with them into the future. But it depends on who sets it up. So all of these anti-poaching units are all run by teams of very passionate people. So it's making sure the passions align. Okay, any other queries or questions? Great questions today, by the way, guys. These are awesome. Love it. No question too large or too small. Any other Facebook ones? Brilliant. Okay, well, Valeria, have you got anything you want to say just before you go off and do your amazing Jerusalem challenge tomorrow? So great to have you with us. Thank you. And if not, I can easily post the links. And doing a tab with 22 kgs, I think will be a brilliant, brilliant challenge for all the Mambas, because as you can tell, this uniform comes from Brit UK uniform. And so we have taken out in the past lots of backpacks, lots of gear that enables them to be able to survive out in the bush. So exciting times. Can't wait to see the pictures. Well, guys, thank you so, so much. And like I say, I hope you don't mind, but I will say that there is a link to be able to make a donation to the Mambas if you would like to. But the main piece of this presentation was to celebrate. And thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing your time. The leadership lessons we can take from these ladies are absolutely 120% applicable to every single solitary one of us, wherever we are. That creating clarity, that creating unity, keeping a really strong set of values and standards, acting as one family, looking after each other through thick and thin, never settling, always going for making sure you're keeping your standards as high as possible and offering huge value to everyone that you come across, and doing it with a smile and a good sense of humour. What more could we ask? So bless you. Thank you so much for your time. Spread the word. Happy Rhino Day. International Rhino Day comes but once a year, a bit like Christmas. So just drop me any questions or thoughts. And like I say, I love speaking to teams. So if you want me to do a talk about the Mambas to any of your teams, happy to do them via Zoom. We've done some brilliant ones during lockdown. And similarly, if you want to come out to South Africa at any stage, you can come and stay with the Mambas. That's always quite entertaining. And what's Valeria said? My microphone and camera don't work, so I can't type it. Okay, thank you, Alice, for being with us and spreading the message. Oh, bless you, my pleasure. To everyone who is there with us today, thank you very much. If you're interested, join us for the Ranger Challenge. It'll be fun, and the Mambas will appreciate your support. I'll make sure I drop the links in for afterwards. So thank you, guys. Thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful day, and ciao for now. See you soon.